Welcome to this explainer. As a plant scientist, I literally spend my entire life looking at leaves, stems, and roots. But today, we're going to take a journey into something completely invisible to the naked eye. We are talking about the hidden memories of plants. So, whether you're a high school biology student or just someone who's super passionate about how we're actually going to feed the world in the future, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's just jump right in and uncover how plants use this secret internal memory system to survive in a pretty chaotic world.
I really want you to think about this fundamental question for a second. If an animal gets way too hot, what does it do? It moves into the shade. If a wildfire approaches, it runs. But plants are what we in biology call sessile. They are literally rooted in place. There is no packing up and escaping extreme weather, a brutal drought, or a massive heat wave. And yet, plants have survived on this planet for hundreds of millions of years. So how exactly do they pull that off?
The secret here lies in a concept called plant plasticity. Because they are completely locked into one location, plants have to adapt from the inside out. They possess this incredibly high degree of internal flexibility. When the environment fluctuates around them, say a sudden freeze drops in or a scorching heat wave hits, the plant rapidly shifts its internal chemistry, its cellular structures, and even its metabolic processes just to weather the storm. It's basically internal shapeshifting. And this plasticity is exactly what allows them to survive the kind of global climate conditions that would easily wipe out less adaptable organisms.
Now, our understanding of this plasticity has evolved dramatically over the years. Over 75 years ago, an American scientist named Harold Flor looked at how plants fight off diseases, and he came up with the gene-for-gene model. He believed that for every single pathogen out there, the plant had one specific matching resistance gene. Think of it like a single lock and a single key. It was a brilliant, simple idea, and honestly, it shaped agriculture for decades. But today, modern science has revealed that plant immunity isn't just a simple collection of isolated sensors. It is actually a highly complex, deeply interconnected network.
And why do these complex networks win out over Flor's simple, single genes? Well, because a network provides a much better safety net. If a single sensor gene fails, or if a pathogen mutates just enough to bypass it, the whole system doesn't just crash. A complex network can reroute, it can compensate, and it keeps functioning. This makes plants highly adaptable to rapidly evolving threats, which is absolutely optimal for environments where temperatures and water levels are constantly shifting. But to run a network that complex, you need an incredible operating system.
That operating system is called epigenetic regulation. For any high school biology students watching, the easiest way to think of it is this. Your DNA is the fixed genetic code, right? That's the hardware. Epigenetics, on the other hand, is the software. It's a mechanism that changes exactly how a gene behaves, turning it up, turning it down, or shutting it off completely without actually altering the underlying sequence of the DNA itself. It is the secret interface between a plant's fixed genetics and the totally unpredictable environment outside.
Let me give you a quick analogy. Imagine your plant's DNA is a massive, heavy biology textbook. It contains absolutely all the instructions needed for survival. But when a severe drought hits, the plant doesn't have time to read the entire book cover to cover. This is where epigenetic mechanisms, like DNA methylation and histone modifications, come into play. They act like chemical bookmarks, or maybe bright neon highlighters. They don't rewrite the actual words in the textbook, but they highlight specific emergency chapters, like the drought defense instructions. That way, the plant's cellular machinery can flip right to that exact page and read it instantly.
This bookmarking process leads to a really amazing phenomenon called stress priming. You can think of it kind of like a school fire drill. Step 1 is the fire drill itself. The plant is exposed to a mild stress, like maybe just a few exceptionally hot days. The plant gets its defenses ready. Step 2 is the bookmark. The stress passes, but the plant leaves those chemical bookmarks on its defense genes. It actively stores a latent memory. Then step 3 is the real fire. A severe, potentially lethal heat wave strikes. Because of those bookmarks, the plant doesn't panic. It mounts a rapid, robust defense instantly, purely because it was already primed and ready to go.
When you look at this on a molecular level, the difference this memory makes is just staggering. A naive plant, which is one that has never experienced a specific stress before, mounts a defense response that is honestly pretty slow and relatively low. But a primed plant, because it holds on to that epigenetic memory of a previous mild stress, it superinduces its defenses. The activation is dramatically higher and way faster. Out in the wild, those saved hours or days are the literal difference between life and death during a severe drought or a fungal infection.
Now, you might be wondering, if these defenses are so great, why doesn't the plant just keep them turned on all the time? Well, that brings us to the economics of resilience, or what we call the growth immunity trade-off. Plants have a limited energy budget. If a plant is constantly on high alert, actively producing defensive chemicals, it literally has no energy left to grow, produce leaves, or make fruit. Active defense severely stunts growth. But priming solves this beautifully. Those bookmarks cost very little energy to maintain. The plant gets this latent protection, a heightened state of readiness without the heavy metabolic cost of constantly fighting a war.
Plant memory isn't just one monolithic thing either. It actually operates on vastly different timescales. First, we have short-term or somatic memory. This happens strictly within a single plant's lifespan, and it usually lasts for days or maybe months. But then, we have something truly mind-blowing, transgenerational memory. This means the plant actually passes those epigenetic bookmarks down through its seeds. The parent experiences the stress, and the next generation is born already primed to fight a threat they've never even physically encountered. It's wild.
To ground this in reality, let's look at some real-world examples. On the somatic side, the tiny guard cells on leaves that control water loss literally remember previous dehydrations. So the next time water is scarce, they close way faster. In forests, researchers have found that mighty oak trees can survive repeated seasonal heat waves because they maintain a cross-seasonal memory from the year before. And transgenerationally, we see crops passing down resistance to blights and pathogens straight to their progeny. This isn't just lab theory, it is ecological memory, playing out in nature every single day.
So let's zoom back out to the macro level for a second. As a plant scientist, this is the exact question that keeps me up at night. In a good way, of course. How can agriculture actively harness this natural evolutionary mechanism? With the global population growing rapidly and the climate becoming more and more erratic, we desperately need crops that can survive. How do we take this epigenetic memory and actually use it to secure our food future?
The answer really lies in actively treating crops to prime their defenses. Farmers can use natural chemical elicitors, like a specific amino acid called BABA, or even beneficial soil microbes to trigger that fire drill in the plants. By doing this, we put the crops into a primed state before disaster strikes. This allows us to sustainably boost yields because the plants aren't wasting all their energy. It greatly enhances their climate plasticity, making them tough enough to handle unpredictable weather. And best of all, because the plant's own natural immune system is hypercharged, we can drastically reduce our reliance on toxic agricultural pesticides.
And the cutting edge of this science? It honestly feels like science fiction, but it's happening right now in the lab. Scientists are using tools like CRISPR, not to cut the DNA, but for something called epigenome editing. We can use a deactivated version of CRISPR to artificially attach these epigenetic bookmarks directly onto the plant's defense genes. Basically, we can give the plant the memory of a drought without it ever having to suffer through one. This creates climate-smart crops that are incredibly resilient. But because we haven't actually altered the underlying genetic sequence, they remain completely non-GMO. That is a massive, game-changing breakthrough.
It really makes you pause and marvel at the biological world, doesn't it? Plants, totally stuck in one place, have managed to evolve a microscopic memory system to outsmart a changing planet. It leaves us with this pretty provocative thought. If plants can learn, adapt, and pass down the memories of their environment without ever changing their core DNA, what else is nature remembering right under our noses that we haven't even discovered yet? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today, and keep exploring.